Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. This is Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Authentic Achievements. We are super excited to have KIM-ADELE Randall back in the house with us. Let's see what she's been up to. Hello, welcome.
Hi, Dr. JACALYN. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really good. I'm so excited to be back. It feels like it's been forever.
It certainly does. We missed you. And you've got so much going on, and you're always helping people change their perspective and incorporate new strategies and behaviors. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do.
Yeah, I think it's so I live a blessed life getting to help people to see that everything that happens in the world it's got two sides of the same coin. So fear is just the opposite of hope. Left is just the opposite of right, up is just the opposite of down. But it's true of everything that we do, every thought that we have, the exact opposite can also be true. It's about how we choose to view things. Take, for example, at the moment, so my car broke down last Saturday with my little girl in it. And we were on the slip road coming off a main motorway. So it was a little bit dangerous. And you could have seen that as like really a real negative, but it was like, look, it is what it is. We were really lucky. Some lovely people stopped and pushed us off the side of the road, and somebody else came back and got my little girl some candy floss, and we just had to wait for the recovery people. And I thought, well, I can either make this a scary experience for Scarlett, or I can try and make it something that's a bit more of an adventure, a little bit more fun. And when the recovery vehicle turned up, it was like, you two look like you're having a whale of a time. We were stood on the side of the behind the barrier where it was safe to stand, having a little sing and dance, because it was like, what else are we going to do? We can get very upset and very frustrated and very scared by it all, or we can go, we're now in a safe space, we're away from the car, we've got nothing else that we can do about it, so we may as well just make the most of it and create a memory that's not a scary one. She's told everybody about it. I think she thinks it's a great thing to break down. Not quite what I was intending, but it could have gone so very differently if I'd have viewed it in a different way.
I love what you just shared there. And I could just imagine that that would be upsetting for anyone, right?
It was really funny, because I was like, what can we do that will cheer us up? What can we achieve? And I always make sure that, I've got drinks and food in the car just in case, because you just never know, do you? So right. I was like, we're perfectly happy, we're perfectly safe. So we can now either make this ruin the rest of our day, or we can make it part of the adventure. So like, what are we gonna do about it? And I think, over the years with things that have happened, I did have somebody say to me once, we can't decide if you're incredibly strong or incredibly stupid. I was like, probably both in equal measures. I said, but there's lots of things that happen in life that we just can't change. Like, we can't fix them. We can't make them not be what they are. But what we can do is change our perspective of them. So we can look at it and go, okay, I look at things now, and when things don't go my way, so things like the car breaking down, or my marriage breaking down, there's a lot of breaking down going on in my life. I kind of look at it as though it's just a plot twist. So, who doesn't love a plot twist when we're watching a movie or reading a book? There's something exciting about a plot twist, whereas a disaster is a disaster. It makes us feel bad. Once you start to change the language and change the perspective, it allows you to look for the opportunities to move forward instead of looking back at what you've lost. And I think that's where we then start to feel back in control.
Yes. Yeah. I love the way you brought that all together. I was listening today in a Clubhouse room on the Clubhouse app, and the conversation was about strategies. It was also about how to make money. And something that kept coming up over and over again was courage. And it's about having courage. And to me, that's also with your perspective, because if you don't change your perspective, you might be coming from a place of fear.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about courage and perspective?
Oh, great question, Dr. JACALYN. And I think it's true. You know, and I think it's a Nelson Mandela quote, and I'm afraid I'll probably butcher it. So my apologies for what the actual quote is. But he had a quote that said what he's learned is that courage is not for people that are fearless. It's for people that have fear but take action anyway. And I think that's the thing. It's about acknowledging that, you know, anything, we're all going to be fearful of something. At some point in our life, we're going to be fearful of it. But as Einstein said, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. The same is true of whatever we're thinking. We've imagined the thing that we're fearful of. It hasn't happened yet. So we've had to create it in our brain. That's the same brain that can create the thing that we're hopeful for, which is the polar opposite of the thing we're fearful of. And yet we choose to dismiss what we're hopeful for as being less credible and less likely than the thing that we are hopeful for. That we are fearful of. So we focus on the thing that we're fearful of. And we know that our brain is like a really happy little sat nav. You know, where we point it, it will go. So if we start to focus on the things that we don't want, we get more of them. And then we find ourselves being self-fulfilling prophecies, which is true for all of us. We're all a self-fulfilling prophecy. What we've got to do is be able to change what we're thinking. And one of the number one things when I talk to people that I help is when I ask them what they want, what they can tell me is what they don't want. And it's like, but what you've got to do is the extra piece that says, but what do you want? So it's great that you know what you don't want, but if you don't know what you do want, you can't get there. You can't achieve it. Because your mind's got to see it first. You've got to understand where it is you're heading so that you can create the path to get there. And I learned that the hard way many years ago. I'd had probably the biggest disaster in my career, and I up sticks and moved 100 miles away to a place where I knew nobody to do a job. And in hindsight, I was running away from the job I had. I didn't want what I got. I hadn't really locked in on what did I want. I just didn't want what I had. And therefore I was in this job for 3 months, two months of which was my notice period. And I ended up commuting back the 100 miles to work at somewhere I'd worked previously. And it was a real moment of discovery for me, which is if you don't have clarity on what it is you do want, you'll just keep repeating the same mistake of what you don't want. Because you're not giving your brain the direction it needs to get you where you really want to go, because you've not defined that.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And we actually just had a course that we put together with Dr. Sadia Rajput, which is about brain health and about how many negative thoughts we have that are thoughts from yesterday or the day before. We bring them into today. We still have them tomorrow, and they take up so much space inside of our brain, and they really keep us back, and we're not even aware of it. And as the negativity permeates and continues, it affects our ability to have perspective, to be courageous, and sometimes also to take risks. You have to take risks to find out what your path is and where you need to go. What are your thoughts about the negativity and also taking risks?
Oh, I completely agree. I think, the negative way that we sometimes talk about ourselves, and we love to go back and focus on the negative, don't we? So we'll go back and we'll look at more negatives, and then we'll gather them. Really can be tremendously damaging. I think the other thing that we do, and we do this from childhood, is we make everything so absolute. So I'm trying to bring that to life a little bit better. If I think about like my little girl Scarlett, who, as you know, is my North Star, she'll come home and she'll go, "Oh, Mummy, I'm not very good at colouring." I'm like, "Yet." You're not very good at colouring yet. For me, yet is probably the most powerful word in the English language, because it allows our brain to realise that we can change that label. It's not ultimately defining. It's just saying, in this moment, I can't do it. But I'm saying yet, so I'm still willing to keep trying. So when I talked about it, it's like, okay, so you're not good at colouring yet, but look how much better you were at colouring today than yesterday. It's like, yeah, much better, Mummy. I'm like much more in the lines. And look at how much better you were yesterday than last week. You're right. Look at my pictures, and we go through them. And it's like, how do you feel about it now? Because I'm getting quite good at colouring, Mummy, aren't I? Yeah, you are. What we need to do is change that label so it's not so all defining. It's like, if you make a bad choice, it doesn't make you a bad person. It means it was a bad choice. Once you take that on and say, I'm a bad person, it will affect the choices you make in the future, because you're a bad person. So you can make bad choices all the time. You don't have to be accountable for those bad choices, because that's just who you are. But the reality is, every single one of us can make a good choice and we can make a bad choice. They don't define who we are. We define who we are. So we have to then take accountability of those choices. And that is in sometimes taking the risk. It's in going out and doing the thing that we're most fearful of, that we go, this could go horribly wrong. And I guess for me, one of the things that I've done for years is ask myself, what's the worst that can happen, and can I live with it? And if the answer to can I live with it is yes, I make myself take the risk. I push myself to do it, because if not, what am I teaching Scarlett? Because she doesn't learn by what I say. She learns by what I say and what I do. So if I'm not being courageous, if I'm not taking risk, and I'm not taking appropriate risk, then I'm not teaching her to be brave, to take those risks, to go, what is the worst that can happen? Yeah, I could come on and talk to people and share my opinion, and everyone go, well, I think that's total rubbish, Kim. That could happen. That would be a bit embarrassing, but I'd still be alive. I'd get through it. I'd probably get some great feedback that might help me to either change my point of view or be more convinced that my point of view is correct. I think you've just got to find that risk compass for yourself and say, what do I need to do to give me a safe space to take the risk, because it's within my risk appetite. And each of our risk appetites will be very, very different. Just like if you went to different lenders, if you were looking for a loan, some lenders will let you have money and some won't, because they've got different risk appetites. And once we understand that and we define our own, we can actually start to help ourselves to take those risks, to push ourselves into that next level.
You are such an inspiration and such a great mother. I love everything that you just shared. And to your point about taking risks, there's all kinds of degrees of risks, right? If you're going to take a risk to put your life in jeopardy, or take a risk where you could lose all of your money, there's different stages. I actually took a risk over the holiday weekend, which I'll just share briefly. I was invited to go to an event, and I really didn't want to go, because I realized what an introvert I become, because I'm literally working 80 or 90 hours a week. And the thought of going somewhere, being with people, was overwhelming. But I went, and I brought some of my books that I wrote with others. And anyway, I sat in a room pretty much by myself on a sofa while the whole party, everybody was mingling. And I didn't feel it. And I kept thinking, why did I come here? What am I doing here? I should be working. Anyway, a couple sat down, started talking to me. They had children, they had grandchildren. I took my books out, and I just wanted their opinion. And they said they were blown away by them, and that this is a $1 million enterprise, that what am I doing to market it and to sell it? Excuse me. And I said, nothing. I'm not doing anything. They're on Amazon. That's all I'm doing. So she took out cash and put it in my handbag and said, give me these books. And I said, no, I'll just give them to you. And she said, what do you mean you'll give them to me? She said, no, you worked hard, you sell them, they have value. And that really opened my eyes. So I was glad that I took that risk. And as a follow-up, I went over to the local police department to find out about getting a, what's it called? not a license. So I could go on the boardwalk and sell the books, maybe on a weekend, a permit.
Yeah.
And nobody was there. I left a long message. Nobody got back to me. I went over to the local library. I took some of the books there with a handwritten card saying, "Can you carry them?" Nobody got back to me. So it didn't pay off yet doing that. But had I not gone to that party and seen that these books have value that I wasn't even aware of, so as a result of that, KIM-ADELE, I created a website specifically for the books. They have their own brand now, The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella. I created a Facebook group and I hired 2 people to do marketing. So one thing led to all those things. And that was literally in 24 hours.
I love that. And it's pushing ourselves out of it. And networking, nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. I mean, you go, don't you? You sat there and you think, oh, no one's going to want to talk to me. And what have I got to say? And we make it all about us. But the one thing that is true is every other person in that room is having the same internal dialogue. They're all going, I wish somebody would just come and talk to me because I feel really embarrassed stood here on my own and I can't go and talk to anybody else because they're not going to want to talk to me. And so we pull ourselves in it. And I used to run some networking events. And one of the first things that I said to people was, you've got to go and talk to somebody that you don't know right now. Right? Just go and say hello and know that they are in exactly the same boat as you. They equally are feeling awkward and uncomfortable and like nobody wants to talk to them. And people used to come afterwards and went, that's so true. And I was like, yeah, but we're all feel the same. It's just none of us voice it. None of us go, I'm finding this really uncomfortable. And I had a reputation, having spent a lot of years in corporate life, for the fact that nothing ever bothers you. You'll talk to anybody. And I was like, because deep down, I just want someone to talk to me because I feel so useless in those situations that I think, well, maybe if I just go and say hello to somebody, they might really just want someone to say hello to them. And then now we're in the conversation. Now, actually, I've got a purpose. I've got something to do, which is to respond to whatever this person has said. But it's amazing how everything has such a ripple effect, and we don't always understand those ripples, but we take those tiny moments of risk, of putting ourselves out there, and it's amazing what that can do. What that did was gave you validation that these books are valuable, these books have got purpose, but you've got to take action with them, which you're doing, to get them out there so that people can see. And I think sometimes we that's the part that can be hard. And I don't know about you, Dr. Jacalyn, but one of the things I sometimes struggle with is everybody seems to try and sell you something within 30 seconds of meeting you. So you then go, I don't want to be one of them. And people think I'm the person that the second that they speak to me, I'm going to solve their problems, or I think that I can, or I've got this great thing that you just need to buy, because I don't like it when people do that to me. So I don't want to do that to other people. But inadvertently, I've swung so far the other way that actually I'm making people work really, really hard to be able to work with me, because I'm making it so complicated, because I'm not telling them in what do I do and how do I do it and how might I help them, that you're inadvertently not serving, even though that's your greatest desire.
So true. I love what you just shared, and I agree. I think something also that you and I have talked about before is knowing our value, knowing our worth. And I know you have something that's coming up that's very exciting for you. You have a special birthday that's coming up, right?
I do.
So yeah, and we were talking about perspective today. So when you were younger and you were thinking about this birthday coming up, what were your thoughts?
Oh, it's really funny, Dr. Jacalyn. So sorry, Pudding's decided to join us.
Pudding.
Hey, Puds. So me and my best friend, we've been friends since we were 4. And we were talking about this just the other week. So she's 3 weeks older than me, and I turned 50 on Monday, and I've clung to my last 3 weeks of 49. But we were saying, like, when we were like 15, 16, 50 may as well have been 80. I mean, it was like ancient. I mean, that was it. You were done. By the time you got there, middle age was 30. And it's funny how now that now that she is there, I'm going to be joining her on Monday. You kind of go, well, 50 is not old. 50 is not old. That's ridiculous. I'm still young. I've still got I've still got my whole life ahead of me. But it was amazing how much that had changed. And it reminded us of a really embarrassing story, but in for a penny, in for a pound, I may as well share it. where many years ago, we'd been talking about the fact that I'd dated this guy when I was 17, and he was 30. So it was 13 years age difference, which is quite big, but not that big. But it turned up to be his 40th birthday. And Charlotte and I had spent an inordinate amount of time going, Jesus, that's quite an age difference, isn't it? 40 to 17. Why did nobody say anything? Until Charlotte's mum had to come and remind us that we were no longer 17. We were now 27. And we just hadn't thought about, okay, we're older now as well. We'd only focused on the other person being older. And we're like, it's funny, isn't it? You don't feel your own age because you're just you. You're just you being you, doing what you do. But equally interesting, other people's perspective. So, I'm 50. Most of my little girl's friends, she's 6. Most of their mums are probably a good 20 years younger than me, or at least a good 15. And yet, Scarlett and her friends don't seem to notice that there is any difference in age. In fact, one of my friends' little ones said the other day, "Which one of you is older, me or your mummy?" And I was like, "Me, by a long way. In fact, I could actually be your mummy's mummy." It was like, "Don't be so ridiculous." I was like, "I'm not being ridiculous. It's true." So we have a perspective that we overlay on things, but the reality is other people can very often see us in a very different way. And it's the same when we think about the challenges that come up in our lives. For some people, it'll be a challenge. For others, it'll be an opportunity to do something different. Same problem. And it reminds me of that old adage, which is the same water that hardens the egg softens the potato. It's not the circumstances, it's what you do with them. And I always try and keep that front of mind, which is sometimes easier said than done, because we do get lost in the runaway train of our fear.
How do you feel in terms of energy for having a young child? Because when someone's younger, right, allegedly they have more energy. I'm 60, so maybe I have less energy than you. I don't know. What are your thoughts about it?
I'll be honest, I've got more energy now than I've ever had, and I put that down to Scarlett. I think she's kept me young. I had her at 43, and I speak to lots of people now that are going, "Oh my God, I can't." The thought, and I was like, it's really interesting because for me, I'd spent 43 years thinking I couldn't have her, so I didn't look at it at, "Oh my goodness, sleepless nights, this, that, and the other." I looked at it as, "Oh my goodness, what a blessing!" And I've been gifted this little earth angel, and therefore I've got to keep myself as fit as I possibly can to help her not be disadvantaged by having an older mum. I don't want to be the one that goes, "Well, I can't do that, I can't do the other," because she didn't choose to have an older mum. That was my choice. But I was just so grateful that I was able to get her. And I think, I just swapped it and went. I spent my 20s and my 30s working stupid hours, flying all over the place with a big job. So I didn't have a lot of sleep anyway. I was up at like 4 a.m. to go and get a plane because I had to travel somewhere, and I'd still be up at probably some nights at like 2 a.m. because she'd been at an event. So I kind of traded it and went, the difference is, yes, I have sleepless nights now, but I have sleepless nights and I get the joy of watching this little person become whoever she's supposed to be. And that feels so much more advantageous than having, don't know, I was super grateful for all that I got to see and experience and achieve in my career as well. And now I get to combine both of them. And it's amazing, again, back to that ripple effect, how intertwined they are. I say to people all the time, I've learned more about leadership since becoming a mum than I learned in the 25 years leading before I had her. Because all of a sudden you've got these little people who are packed full of curiosity, of courage. They feel the fear, but they find a way through it. So for Scarlett, sometimes she's fearful of things, and then she goes and grabs Lenny the lion, and as long as Lenny's with her, she can tackle the world. And I see that not just in my child, I see it in so many children, which is, they go and get their favorite toy, and all of a sudden, if their favorite toy is holding their hand, they can do it. And I think, wouldn't it be great if we could find our own version of our favorite toy as an adult, and we could hold its hand in those moments where we're fearful, because that's going to be the thing that gives us the courage to take the risk. And then to take those moments, we don't reflect enough on, what was it that I was fearful of and what have I learned? So one of the things I say to people to do every day, and I do, Scott and I do it, we do the things we're grateful for. We also do, what have we learned today? And in the what have we learned today, we include that we achieved something that in the morning we didn't think we could do. So it isn't just a case of, I learned stuff that went wrong and I learned my lesson. It's like I learned to trust myself, because this morning I didn't think I could do it, but look at how far I've come. And recently she was wanting to do roly-polies, and she just hadn't got the courage to let go. So she'd be like there, nearly over, and then she'd just hang it back. And all she needed you to do was just touch her bum and she'd flick over. But she still needed you to do that piece. And she's like, I'm never going to get this, Mummy. I went, you will if you keep trying. You just need to keep trying. And you need to trust yourself. Mummy trusts you. She knows you can do this. You've just got to trust yourself. Now she roly-polies everywhere. Little too roly-poly, to be honest. But she's so proud that she can now do it. But instead of just allowing her to have achieved that, we sat down and I said, how do you feel right now? And she went, amazing, Mummy, I can do these roly-polies. I went, how would you have felt if you'd have stopped because it was too hard? And she went, well, I'd be sad, Mummy, because I'd miss this. And I went, that's why we keep trying. That's why even when we can't do it the first time, we keep going, because what you're striving for is how you feel right now. But therefore, you've got to take a moment and breathe in how you feel in those moments when you've achieved something you didn't think you were going to, because that is going to be what motivates you to do it next time, or to take the risk the next time there's a challenge.
What an incredible lesson. I'm really applauding you for that. The roly-poly, that brought back such great memories for me. And to think as adults, even there's a pose in yoga where if you do, oh my gosh, now I forget, you're lying on the floor and you grab your legs behind you and you push up, and then you can roll over. You can roll all the way over. And I remember many times in being in a yoga class thinking, I can't do it. I don't want to try. What if I end up on somebody else's mat? What if this? What if that? And then you try, you're like, wow, I did it. And it's just, we tell ourselves these things. And I love how you're teaching Scarlett, you're educating her to let go of all these fears and these reasons. Because if we did that when we were children, my age, it's incredible. You lose so much time because of the fear.
We do. I mean, if you think about when you've got to have a difficult conversation, and hopefully it's not just me, but you put it off, don't you? And then you spend all your time thinking about how difficult it's going to be, and then you like, this could happen and that could happen. Oh, and my goodness, that could go. And what if this? And how many times do you then have the conversation because you've got to, and go, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Well, you wasted 3 days of your life building it up to being horrendous. That's why. Why not just do it straight away? Why not just have the conversation in the first moment? One, it won't be any harder if you have it today than if you have it in 3 days' time. The difference will be you gift yourself 3 days not worrying about it. And imagine what you can do positively in your life with 3 days you've wasted with your imagination of how bad it's going to be.
Exactly. The days would add up and add up. How many years would it be?
Honestly, if I think of how much time until I learned this, which was, how many times, Kim, do you have to say that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be before you actually stop procrastinating in the first instance and just be more honest? We say about children, don't we? Your children are just innately honest, particularly little children. If it's in their head, it's coming out, even if you'd really rather, that they didn't. I remember one horrendous moment when I was looking after my stepdaughter, and she was about 3.5, and we were in the supermarket, and we went down this aisle, and there was an unusual looking man that was stood in the aisle, and she just pointed at him and she went, "We don't like him, do we?" And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, well, I don't know, darling, we don't know him. I've got no idea. You know, I've never met the person before. And she was like, well, he looks funny. And then she started telling us all the things that she thought was looking funny. I was like, oh my God, I just want to get out this aisle. I don't care what we need in it. We don't need it anymore. I just need to be somewhere else. But she wasn't doing it because she was trying to be cruel or unkind. She was doing it because that's what came into her head. And it was like she was just saying what she saw. So I'm not suggesting that we all suddenly become completely unkind. And if, you know, say what we see, even if we think, well, actually, that's not a very kind thing to say. So I was trying to temper Scarlett, you know, as who it's my responsibility to bring up, to say, well, is what you're saying kind? How would you feel if somebody said that about you? Well, I'd be sad. Okay, we don't say anything about anybody else that we would be sad if somebody said it about us. That's always our measure of do we say this? Is how would we feel if somebody did the same to us? So because I think once we temper things with that measure, we're then able to say, okay, how's a kind way of asking the question? What's a kind way of us being able to solve that problem? But I think instead we don't have those conversations with our children. We don't talk to them about kind of how might it feel, and instead we just tell them not to. So what we do is we get them to suppress their thinking, suppress their imagination, suppress their view of kind of, you know, what they're thinking about the world, and then we make them doubt themselves. And how many people then end up in adult life? I know I certainly was one of them, having to unpick all of the stuff that I'd done to myself over the years that I probably convinced myself had been done to me by everybody else that met me. But we're the ones that are accountable for our own lives. So we did it to ourselves. We created the situations and the circumstances to allow us to have all those things happen to us, whatever those things were, I think.
Absolutely. And then we get to be the age we are. As I mentioned, I'm 60, and I think to myself, wow, there's certain parts of my life that really need some work, but I have the tools now. I have the skills now. But wouldn't it be great if I didn't have these issues that stem from when I was younger? So I really admire what you're saying. KIM-ADELE, how is it that you think your life may be different when you turn 50 on Monday? Or do you have anything in mind, anything that you want to accomplish that you said to yourself, okay, I'm going to do it now?
Yeah, a few things. And it's funny because I already think I'm 50. And I was talking to my mum about this morning. I said, because a part of my group, my friends from school and some of my friends that we've been friends for like 20 odd years, they've all turned 50 already. So I already think I'm 50 because they are. So I'm like, I'm only a few weeks younger than them, but even so, it felt like we were already there. And so in the run up to being 50, I started to look at things and go, why wait until then? Why not start to do some of them now? And now I'm looking at it and going, well, actually, it reminds me of two pieces of great advice that my grandparents gave me and that I sometimes forget. So the first one is to make every day a school day. So in every day to learn something. And that was for my nan. And then my granddad said, live each day as if it's your last, and one day you'll be right. And that's going to be how I choose to live my life from this point on, which is do today what I want to do rather than keep putting it off till tomorrow. When this happens, when this happens, I'll do this. When that happens, I'll do the other. We give ourselves all of these reasons to procrastinate. So now I'm kind of taking that. Sorry, squeaky dog. Now I'm taking that moment to go, do you know what, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it today. I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to find the way. And this morning was a great example. I've been procrastinating for months about going to a Pilates class. And this morning I was like, stop making excuses. It was a great excuse. My car's broken down. I couldn't get there. I rang my friend, was like, do you want to go? Let's go together. Do you mind taking me? Because it was like, actually, if you want to make it happen, take the action, do something, like step into it. And I realized that, you know, I say that to Scarlett all of the time, and I wasn't walking my truth. And that's the thing I'm committing to doing differently from today, is to live my truth. So if I'm telling her she's got to be brave and take action and be curious and be kind, then I need to do that as well. And the thing I wasn't doing was the take action. So I was doing the be curious, I was being kind, and then I was like, and we'll just leave it here and we'll wait for life to come and happen to us. And it doesn't work that way, I don't think.
That's brilliant. And congratulations on going to Pilates. How did you like it?
I loved it. I was mortified, to be fair, because I went a long time ago and I was hopeless. And the instructor was lovely and kept politely coming over and going, "Is it okay if I touch you?" as they moved back into another position. And I felt like they may as well just sit next to me for the entire class, because I was that hopeless. That's what I built up in my brain. So you're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to not be able to do any of the moves or any of it. You're just going to be hopeless. And it was the same instructor. And I was thinking, oh, bless her. I mean, it's been a few months, so hopefully she didn't remember me. Because if not, she might have turned me out. But she only actually had to come and correct me once in the whole hour that we were there. And on at least 4 occasions, she came over and went, "Great job." And I was like, yay. And this is an awful thing to say, but me and my friend were in the car on the way back and went, "Didn't it make you feel better that she had to go and correct some of the regulars a couple of times, and she only had to correct us once?" Because they've been doing this, so like we're not as hopeless as we thought, not from a they're getting it wrong, but more from a actually we're not as bad as we've made up in our head, as we've created. And that fear of looking silly in front of a room of people had been enough to stop me from taking the risk of going. But it's like, yeah, I'd look silly the first few times, but if I keep trying, same as with Scarlett, if I keep trying, then I'll get better at it. And it's like, I can't be saying to Scarlett, you need to keep trying. Yes, you didn't get it right the first time, but keep going. It's only when we keep going that we get there. And then go, where are you not living that in your own life? Yeah, you went to a couple of Pilates classes and you made a bit of a fool of yourself, and then you just didn't go back. Well, you were never going to get better at it, were you? It wasn't like you were suddenly overnight going to achieve it. But I realized what I have been doing at home is doing some using YouTube. So inadvertently, I've been doing the practice. I just hadn't put myself out of my comfort zone and left the house to do it. Because as you said earlier, Dr. Jacalyn, I think sometimes we become very introverted when we're working hard and we've got lots of things to do. I do lots of stuff with Scarlett and very little for myself. And I realized that that's also not giving her the right message. So I have to look inward and see what I can do differently.
Absolutely. And imagine if you didn't have those feelings, that's part of the journey.
Yeah.
The journey is exploring something new and realizing that this is going to be an education. It's an awakening. It's something that's going to create newness inside of you. So I really admire that. On the flip side, I was doing something like Pilates, which is called solid core, not a paid spokesperson. But when I was in Florida, I literally went every single day, I think, except for 3 times in 6 months. And now we're in New Jersey and there aren't any that are nearby. And the second to last time I went in May, before we left, I literally started crying in the class. I was in a push-up position, so my head was down, but I just started crying. And I realized that I was crying because it had become such a part of my life, and it was a way for me to release feelings and emotions. And now that was going to be gone. And so I had this period of transition that this was so important to me, because every time I was taking my spring level to the next level and doing more push-ups and more this and more that. And so now on an island, I have to reinvent myself. And I think that's what it comes to. We hold on to something so strong because it's part of who we are, but yet we need to grow. And not that I wasn't growing, I was, and I can't wait to get back at some point if I ever do. But it was time to do something else because it's not available, right? And sometimes things are not available when we want them to be available.
That's so true. And sometimes we have things that we don't realize have become such a crutch for us until it gets taken away. And then we're like, oh my goodness, okay, that's how I coped with certain things. That's how I felt safe. That's how I felt like secure, like I was doing something for myself. And when that isn't available to us anymore, that's the thing we grieve. And we do have to grieve it because it's not available to us anymore. But it's about then looking at what can I put in there now to replace it. That isn't for me. And I think it's happened lots of times for me in different ways, whether it's been illnesses that have happened or breakdowns with marriages or various things where suddenly something that you relied on is no longer available to you. And you have to find us something else to fill its space. And that's a bit scary, because you kind of, well, I don't know what I'm going to put in here. I don't know what's going to go there. But once you do, and that becomes the new thing, that, and you look back and realize how far you've grown. And I was talking to somebody the other day and said, I've realized that life only really makes sense in the rear view mirror. When you're in it, when you're going through it, you're that busy dealing with the emotion of what's going on and trying to find fixes for it, that you don't really realize why you're going through it. And I know I've joked before on this show that if I were to write my memoirs, it's 3 divorces, a stalker, and an evil inner critic. And I can layer in 3 serious illnesses, 2 car accidents, a hurricane, and a miscarriage. Life's given me the opportunity to grow in ways that I would never have been given the gift to grow in without those things having happened. And while they didn't all feel like blessings at the time, when I look at who I've become as a result of going through them and what I've learned, and more importantly, therefore, how I can help others to not have to go through them, but to still get the growth, I'm eternally grateful. And if I went back to live my life over, I wouldn't change anything, because I wouldn't be who I was without having gone through those. And it takes a while to get to a place where you can be comfortable with that.
It sure does. And everything that you're sharing really applies to a professional level for entrepreneurs as well. We get very comfortable with what it is that we're doing because we're growing, it's going in the right direction. But yet at the same time, maybe there's something else that if we were open to it would really catapult us to another level, whatever that level is. It doesn't have to be money, it doesn't have to be financial. So I think when I think back to my example of the solid core, it was definitely working for me. I was super strong. And when I would go there, they would say, you're one of our strongest people here. There was a former Olympic swimmer who was next to me. She's like, wow, are you strong? And I had to let go of that. And am I strong now? I don't know, because I'm not able to go there. But so I'm doing different types of things that I think are probably helping me grow in other ways and work other body parts maybe that I wasn't working before. But yet I was really adamant. It was painful. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it was really painful. And that's how change is. It can be painful, but it's necessary. And we can always go back to what we know.
It's so true. And change is uncomfortable. One of the things I do transformational change for big organizations. And one of the simplest ways that we kind of explain it to people is if wherever you are right now, if you just fold your arms, don't think about it, just fold them. And then do me a favor, unfold them and fold them the other way. And when you see people do this in a room, some people can do it and they can just flip them over, and others have to really think about it. All of us find it uncomfortable though. We've got a more comfortable way of folding our arms. We've got a more comfortable way of putting our jacket on. We've got a more comfortable arm to wear our watch on. That when we put it on the other way, it feels uncomfortable because it takes more thinking. We have to be more consciously present in what we're doing. And that means that it's more challenging for us. It doesn't mean we can't do it. It doesn't mean it's not achievable. But they're the moments where we grow. They're the moments where we learn something else. And for a lot of businesses, it's looking at what are the tiny changes that need to happen. And instead, we focus on the big things. We're waiting for this big thing that's going to change the world for us. And very often, it's in the iterations of the things we do consistently where the greatest growth will come.
What a great way to end the program for today. Thank you so much. Before we go, I just want to share something. We have our Lady Ella, The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella book project, and you have 2 characters who are on the book cover and included in the book. Let's share the screen and bring them up. So for those of you who are not aware, we have a book series called The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the Listening Mentor. There will be 7 books in total in the first series and 7 in the second series. And Lady Ella is the ladybug that you see here. And she is named Ella, and she travels to various places helping animals, and she's going to outer space for the next book. So tell us about the characters that you have in this book.
So my 2 characters, and they are around the 2 most important people in my life, which is Scarly Bear, my little girl, and that's Lenny the lion, because Lenny the lion is her absolute go-to. She's been with her since before birth, and whenever she's in those moments of being fearful, if she's got Lenny with her, she can conquer the world. And the second one is for Pudding, my little dog, and that's Riff Raff the giraffe, which is one of Scarly's other favourite boys. So she doesn't go anywhere without her boys. Well, she goes to school there, but if we go on holiday and that, she's like, Mummy, can the boys come? I'm like, of course the boys can come. So Riff Raff and Lenny are key parts of our little family, but they are representing Scarly Bear and Pudding, my furry and non-furry children.
Thank you so much, KIM-ADELE. And just for people to understand, these books are to teach children and their families how to listen at an elevated level. And KIM-ADELE is one of our elevated listeners. She's taken the power of listening. So that's how she qualified to be able to have characters on the book and in the book. And so not only do the animals learn how to listen at an elevated level, they also learn something about how to coexist. In this particular book, the animals see that the game rangers have a dog, and they're not happy that the dog is there in their safari game land. So Lady Ella has to help them work together and coexist, and they have to do that by using listening skills. So thank you, KIM-ADELE, for being part of this project and for having these two beautiful characters here.
Thank you for letting me. I think, you know, for me, and I know we're in agreement on this, one of the most important skills is listening. And we've lost the art of it. We listen to interject, not to understand. And yet when we learn to listen to understand first, then we can find the commonalities. And when we find the commonalities, we can overcome any conflict. So I think it's such a great skill. And I try really hard to teach it to Scarlett. And books like this really help to bring that to life, because we teach and learn in stories. And so it's a joy and an honor to be part of it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Just a final comment about the book series. We actually have coloring books that are going to be one coloring book per book, and there are going to be questions in the coloring book to see the retention that the readers had about what happened in the book. So, so KIM-ADELE, we have your contact information here, but for people who'd like to hire you, they'd like to reach out to you, they want to talk to you, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and where are you on social media?
Of course. So the easiest way to get in touch with me is to email me. So it's kim@kimadelerandall.com. Or you can visit us on the website, which is AuthenticAchievements.com. And I'm on social media as KIM-ADELE10, pretty much everywhere. So please do reach out. I would love to hear your stories and see how we can help each other.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, we're signing off for now. And KIM-ADELE will be back next month. So we'll see you the first Friday of August.
Fabulous. I will look forward to it. Have a lovely few weeks.
Thanks. You too. Bye, everyone. Stay tuned. The Power of Etiquette and Manners is coming up next. Bye for now.